The all button controller you're looking at right now is the Starburst by Brook, a company better known for their excellent fighting boards and wingman converters. I don't think it's a stretch to say they're at the top of their game in that part of the market. But now they're stepping out of the shadows with a controller of their own. And if my community post from a few months ago and the general discourse online are anything to go by, fighting game fans didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. And the reason is pretty clear: the price. At $250 to $300, it's definitely a heavy hitter, especially in this economy. But I do think there are qualities and value considerations that are getting overlooked because of the initial shock. Let's unpack the money factor later in the video. First, I want to thank Brook for sending the Starburst over for the purpose of this video. I do get to keep the controller, but no instructions were given and all opinions are entirely my own. And let's just quickly, that's better. There are 3 standout features of the Brook Starburst that you won't find on any other leverless controller out there. The first is this magnetic flip case. This acts as a protective shell and an angle adjustment system. But for the sake of your wrists and tendons, I don't recommend playing fighting games in the angled modes. They're fine for casual stuff or repurposing the controller as a control panel, but probably not for serious long-term play. It is nice that the option is there for people who want it though. Brook doesn't show this on their site, but it can sit in a reflex angle. This position allows your wrists to relax downward and might be more ergonomic for long sessions, provided you can find the correct setup to accommodate it. The flip case is textured, robust, and feels premium. And it has to be, because it's permanently attached. If it ever gets damaged, you're kind of out of luck. So hopefully this holds up with time and you don't get too salty and take things out on the controller. Just a quick note on disengaging the back flap. If you hear a peeling sound, stop immediately because that's the panel of the controller. Make sure you've got a handle on the magnetized layer before pulling away. The second unique feature is the integrated acrylic frame that doubles as handlebars. These add some physical protection by protruding past the body, making it easier to pick up off a flat surface and potentially helping to absorb shock. I'm not about to drop test this on purpose, but it feels durable. Their main purpose is to transform the controller into a fashion accessory. Brook includes metal keyrings and a quality strap in the box, and these are very easy to install. This stuff feels quite solid, and the fully articulating joints on the strap are a thoughtful design choice. And finally, the third and arguably the most important feature is native universal compatibility. No extra dongles, no third-party converters, just hold the corresponding button and plug it in. It works with PS5, Xbox Series X, Switch, PC, and PS4. That's huge. With all of that in mind, we can start to make sense of the value proposition here. When buying something, it's a good idea to factor in the real world end cost. I went through this recently with a camera purchase. I bought a new camera to improve my video quality for your viewing pleasure. Don't worry, you don't have to thank me, but if you do want to show some appreciation, just hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you. So with this camera, I needed to budget for the lens, which is obvious, but what about the not so obvious stuff? Like the memory card, extra storage for the higher quality videos, a camera bag to protect it all, you get the idea. Likewise, with leverless controllers, there are hidden costs if you plan on taking them to locals and tournaments, which can push your total up quickly. The purpose of the Brook Fighter Starburst is to have everything you need in one clean, self-contained solution. If you're a fighting game nomad, you'd love the versatility and convenience. Just pick up and go. Everything under the hood is as expected, but just as important. You can change your SLCD cleaning mode to match your tournament regulations, cycle through RGB options, set turbo buttons, and it has a tournament lock. These options are accessed through button combinations with the function button, and official instructions for how to do these things are linked below. Aesthetically, I find the build interesting. The handlebars and carry case elevate this from a regular acrylic stack, and I like that the case is not obtrusive at all. It disappears during play. My OCD bros might feel a little bit tickled by the left heavy alignment of everything, but this extra touchpad button helps to balance it all out a tad. That's to say, the build is cool, but the layout is a bit meh. The included tool lets you swap out the artwork quickly and easily, which I'm guessing most of you out there would want to do as soon as possible. The Kale Choc V2 switches are white rains, I'm told, and they feel good. Responsive, no wobble, maybe a hint of scratchiness in some of mine. They're built with POM plastic, which produces a pleasant sound, but the body construction is a tad hollow, so overall it leans closer to a clacky sound. I keep the rings on during play and sometimes I get a rattling from them. If you have very specific preferences, you can swap in something like Shadow Huntings or Low Free Wizards, but for most people, the stock switches will be more than fine. The stock keycaps are solid. These concave 20mm caps feel premium. They have a very smooth finish and clean up easily. Again, you only need to replace them if you have a very particular preference. The included switch puller though, genuinely awful. I hope you have a good one already or don't feel the need to change your switches. Otherwise, I recommend this one by Wuke Studio, link in the description. Let's talk about what it's like to actually use the Brook Fighter Starburst. The first thing I noticed is that the small button caps combined with the wide spacing demands a conscious accuracy from my fingers. I feel like I can't completely relax and allow my hands to intuitively strike the buttons. A part of my brain is always looking for the right spot, so off the bat, it's not immediately comfortable and will take time for your hands to adjust if you're used to a closer spacing and larger buttons. This R3 button initially seemed like a danger, but during a long set, I didn't unintentionally touch it once, which I totally expected would happen. So if you use your thumb for jump, X and circle buttons, don't worry too much. The RGB lighting is bright, very bright, and because they're located on the east and west positions, they can attack your eyes if you look down. Thankfully, you can turn them off or tone them down through the function button commands. Having said that, you would rarely look down at your controller during a set, so this is a non-issue most of the time. The shoulder strap is very convenient, and if you find it fiddly and outright annoying during play, it's easy and quick to unclip and set aside. And here's a little bonus tip, the rings work really well as a cable manager. Speaking of cable management, since the USB socket is still exposed when you close the flap, you can plug your cable in there and wrap it around the controller. It's not the cleanest look, but it's better than losing your cable. In terms of ergonomics, the width of the Starburst is a big plus. It sits comfortably across the lap and has a good weight. If you like to split your legs, it's better to have this closer to your stomach whilst you lean back. Otherwise, it works well towards your knees if you want to lean forward. Now for some bad news. These function buttons are my least favorite of all function buttons I've encountered. In my opinion, they're too small, too fiddly, and just downright uncomfortable. There's also zero labeling on them, so if you're forgetful like myself, you could fumble a bit whilst looking for the button you want. This is another good reason to mod your own art. For this comparison, I have the Doyle HitPad version 1. This is also a wide and short controller. It runs on a GP2040, so it's an example of a controller that would require at least one dongle if you want to play it on the PS5 or Series X. It has an aluminium top, so it's difficult to art mod, but the design language is good enough so that art modding is not required in my opinion. Function buttons are labeled. They feel more solid, more stable than the Starburst ones, and a screen is very helpful for referencing your various SOCD modes, turbo buttons and such. The spacing and button sizes make this a very comfortable controller for my hands. It does sound extremely hollow, which I'm not keen on, and the Starburst has this beat when it comes to stock switches, sound, and as an overall complete package. The Doyle HitPad version 1 is around $110, so should land around $150 if you buy a dongle. There's a full review of this on my channel, so check that out if you're interested. I think a great comparison for the Starburst is the Snapbox Micro XL, which I don't own, so I can't show them to you side by side. The Micro XL also has concave buttons and a short, wide body. It doesn't have universal compatibility and costs $235. If you're interested in a Micro XL, I think you should seriously consider the Brook Starburst as an alternative, because it offers a lot more if you can raise your budget slightly. So let's bring it all together. Who shouldn't buy the Brook Fighter Starburst? If you're on a tight budget, this isn't the one. At $250 to $300, it's a premium product with a premium price tag. And if you're new to leverless controllers and still figuring out your preferences, button size, spacing, layout, this probably isn't your first step. It has a very specific feel and form factor. So who is the Brook Fighter Starburst for? Definitely players who jump between PS5, Xbox, Switch and PC and want true plug and play functionality without extra gear. Who else? People who value portability and were going to buy a protective case or carrying bag anyway. And finally, those who want a set it and forget it controller. Everything you need is already here unless you want to mod it. So, is it overpriced? Maybe, but I think that's the wrong lens. If you compare it to budget leverless controllers plus 2 authentication dongles, you're already getting close to this price, without a case, without the extras, without platform peace of mind. Would it have had a better reception if Brook used a custom chassis instead of a stack build? Probably. That decision makes it feel a bit like a sub $150 controller rather than a premium, purposefully built one. I have no doubt that if the Brook Fighter Starburst had a metal enclosure with just a bit more height and more effort placed on a function roll, gamers would be very excited about this controller. It's packed with loads of tech, and on closer inspection, you'll find the build does elevate itself from other stack designs in the sub $100 category. I know I've said some negative stuff in this review, but that's because I, like many of you, have high expectations for Brook. I think the Starburst misses the mark on some things, but it's not completely without some important merits. Those of you who can see and want those merits will be quite happy to strap this up for your next local. Thanks for joining me today for this video. If you have any questions, comments on the Brook Fighter Starburst, or maybe what you'd like to see in Brook's next leverless controller, I welcome you to drop a message below. All links are in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.